Good morning and welcome to Zen Fits here in Blackstone, Virginia, the center of the world. But then you too are at the center of the world. When you're not at the center, nothing fits. When you're at the center, everything fits. I think my spiritual life, my journey started because of the suffering of being outside, looking in. I was outside of myself. I was outside of the world. I was, kind of like looking through the window at happy people inside, or looking at commercials where everybody's so happy, looking at the world from outside and feeling in exile or left out or something's missing. Why can't I be happy like them? That's the viewpoint from the outside. But our true nature is to be at the center, not outside. So let's talk about that. Title of this talk is Prisoners of Grammar. We are all prisoners of grammar. I got a degree at Old Dominion in 1960. And a BA in English. I was going to be an English teacher. I tried it for 3 years and then didn't like it. Know the story. But the point is, I married an English teacher. So for 3 years, my wife and I taught English in Northern Virginia in the 60s. And so I know a little bit about English, even though I'm a rotten speller. I can't spell anything. And even autocorrect fails me by assuming what I meant when I didn't, And anyway, so my grammar is terrible. My wife's grammar is perfect. And she can spell everything. She works with words, crosswords, and I write. But I can't spell. Kind of a dyslexic thing. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. But the point of it is, if you I don't know how they teach English anymore, but when I learned English, the grammar of it, you learned the rules of grammar. And one of the big rules is the three persons. There's first person, second person, third person. So English, in most Indo-European languages, English comes from an Indo-European base. I learned that in English, French and Italian and English. And it's all a European, the part of the Indo-European languages, which have the same grammar, subject, verb, object. A subject does something, verb to an object, SVO, subject, verb, object. And the grammar is three persons. You either write in first person, second person, or third person. Now let's talk about the difference between, I'll put this one down, between third person and first person. Now third person, English, is where everything is a person, place, or thing, or a noun. It's an object. There's a person, or it's a place, Blackstone, or it's a thing. It's a house in Blackstone, or a person in Blackstone. Persons can be things. Persons are things. But our language, the modern American language, the worldview of the modern mind, since the age of reason, the birth of science and individuality, individual consciousness from the 16th century, the dominant person of this language is third person. Everything is an it. In other words, you can't operate on nature, you can't fix the machine unless it's an it. Now if you watch Avatar, the viewpoint of the sky people, or earth people, was third person. Everything was an it. The Navi was it. The home tree was an it. Oh, cut the thing down. It's just a tree. They can grow another one. Everything's an it. You see, everything's an object. And everything is an object means it's over there. Subject, I'm here. I look at objects. Everything is an it. I can name them. I can put them on Google. Everything on Google is an it. You're not on Google as an I. Now, first person, you see, is a shift. In writing, you would write first person by saying, well, I went to the store. So you're writing from the first person. Or you're writing from the third person, which is about so-and-so went to the store. Well, so-and-so, Jane went to the store. Jane's an object, an it, and the store is an it. But if I write, I went to the store, you see, that's in language, that's first person. A second person is a relationship of I and you. Now, in Avatar, the Navi were second person. Everything was thou. I see you. I see you. This is the look of lovers. You know, a lover is a thou. It's not an it. If you're in love with someone, they're not an it. They're not an object with characteristics. Oh, big, small, yada, yada. You know, all these characteristics, the adjectives. In second person, I see you. I see you as me. Me, you, me. There's no gap there. When there is an it, third person, there's a gap between I and it. I see it, but the I is not there. Everything's an it. Look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm an it. People look at me and say, we look at everybody else and say we know them by behaviors and characteristics. They're its, you see, and nouns, objects. So we live in an objective worldview where everything is a thing. And this is handy if you want to fix the machine, if you want to build a rocket, if you want to control nature. You have to be outside of nature in order to control it. So this third person viewpoint was actually created by the age of science, the age of reason, or the age of enlightenment, quote, you see. But it was basically the discovery of the third person, where nature is objective, and I, like a scientist, can operate on nature. You see, the surgeon doesn't operate on himself, he operates on the body. The mechanic doesn't operate on himself, he operates on the machine. And if he wants to get himself fixed, he go to a doctor who sees himself as a machine. You can see the difference right here. Let's look at that. Suppose a woman goes to a doctor, right? So she goes to a professional, and she trusts that doctor is going to see her as an object. And he's going to look at her as an object and say, oh, this is wrong, this is right. We can fix that, you see, we can fix that. As a mechanic would say, if you took the car to a mechanic. You bring the car to a mechanic, and the car is an object, and the mechanic looks at it and fixes it. So you take your body to a doctor under the assumption that the doctor is objective. He's a professional. But suppose he's checking your breast for cancer and suddenly he's feeling me. He's caressing me. This blows the mind. This is what, it wounds the woman when she thinks she's with a professional and suddenly she's being felt, you see. Now there's a shift in person right there, you see. Instead of the doctor being I, objective, out there, professional, and I being an it, suddenly I become a thou. Suddenly the doctor is seeing me as thou, as he sees me as himself, and he is aware, and suddenly he's aware of my being aware that he's aware of me, not as an object, but as a person, as a subjective. It's hard to describe, but it's an experience that we'll go to a subway. You're standing on a subway. Everybody's touching everybody. You're jammed up, and suddenly the hand that was, suddenly that hand that was just up against you starts to feel you. I'm being felt. That's a shift in person. A shift from everything's an it to suddenly I'm somebody's thou. It's a shift in person. And we recoil. We recoil, and we. There's a little tear there. There's a little wound there. I remember we were at New York. We were years ago. My wife and I were at the Times Square New Year's Eve. And so we're all jammed up in there, And suddenly, my wife's behind me. Suddenly, somebody's feeling me. Somebody's feeling it. So I shifted. So I got, I put myself between me and the feeler. But we all know that experience. That's a shift in person. Okay, so we're trying to get at the shift here is that the reality we believe is real is a reality from a viewpoint of third person where everything is an object. We don't even question this. Everything's an object. I look around this room. Everything's an it, you see. I look at my picture here. This is a mirror, and there's an it, But if you really look at yourself in the mirror, you can pass through the mirror and suddenly pass through the it and pass into a different person, a different viewpoint, which is first person. Now, first person, of course, in grammar, in writing, it's writing, I did this. But in reality, the first person is Buddha. When Buddha awakes, when Sakyamuni awakes as Buddha, Buddha means awakened. It's not a person, it's awakened. It's a verb. Or it's a shift in grammar from third person to first person, which is I am. So when Buddha awakens, it's a shift from third person viewpoint of everything's an object to I am. No, there are no more objects. In first person, everything is I. And Buddha exclaimed when he awakened, and all heaven and earth, I alone am the most honored one. So, and then Zen Hakun will say, from the beginning, all beings are Buddha. Now that's a first person viewpoint, and looking at it from the third person, it makes no sense. You say, what do you mean all beings are Buddha? You mean ants are a Buddha? What's a Buddha? You're a Buddha? You're a thing? Buddha's a thing? You think you're a Buddha? You're a thing? You see? Third person can't figure it out. Third person, this is ridiculous. Everything's what it is. Everything is what it is. Gonna pull this up again. Old hag, princess, old hag. You see, it's ambiguous. What is this picture? Is it a hag? Well, you're wrong. Is it a princess? You're wrong. What is it? You can't separate them. You can separate them by third person, so, I see a hag, so that's it. The picture is it, the hag. I name it. It's a hag. Wait, the picture shifts. It's a princess. Oh, it's a princess. No, it shifts back. It's a hag. It's a princess. It's a hag. I can't choose, you see, so I'm out of third person right there. This forces me out of third person view, because in third person view, everything is what it is. This is the law of Aristotle. It's what makes science work. So if I say, what is this? It's say, well, this is a can. It's an old can, perhaps, of Prince Albert tobacco. It's pipe tobacco. It's a can of pipe tobacco. You see, that's what it is. Get a picture of it. Look it up on Google. Google will tell you that's a can of Prince Albert. You know, I bought this on eBay for $7. Why? For me, it's not a can of tobacco. For me, it's a metaphor for my teacher, Albert Lowe. So I carry Albert Lowe in a can, you see, just like people carry God in a Bible. We get a portable Bible, you know, then you don't have to go to church. You can carry the church with you. So it's kind of like, this is a portable Albert Lowe. It's a metaphor. So is this a can of tobacco? Well, in third person, it is. But in first person, it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for I am. It's a metaphor for first person. So, Prince Albert, this is a metaphor, you see. It's both a can, literally, right? But metaphorically, it's my teacher. It's my Zen master, you see. And I've got him in a can. And I can open him up anytime I want, you see. How you doing, Prince Albert? You see. Anyway, I digress, but the point is, we're prisoners of grammar because the modern world has locked us in a third-person view of reality. We break out once in a while. You break out when the doctor feels you up. You break out when suddenly you get a eye full of wonder. Wonder is not third person. What wonder is first person. Wonder is, in that moment of wonder, nothing's in it. Everything is you. You are everything. That's first person. In the eye of wonder, there's no gap between you and the beauty. The beauty of the mountain, the beauty of the art, or whatever awakens your wow or your awesome, has no gap between the object and you. In the third person, there's a gap. I, subject, look at it. I, it. There's a separation. There's a gap between I and it, you see. And this is our prison. We're prisoners of the gap. Because in I, it, there's a calculation going on. Is this it good or is this it bad? What should I do with this it? Should I get rid of it? Should I hug it? What is it? What is it, you see? If you're asking what it is from third person, you'll never find it. Because by the very nature of your viewpoint, you're separate from it. But in the first person, you are it. It is you in that moment. So there's a breakthrough from the grammar to first person in these moments of awe. Go to Avatar and suddenly you open up into the flying mountains and you go, for a moment, you are the flying mountains. The flying mountains are you. So in the first person, there is wonder. Children, little children, live in first person. They have to be taught how to live in the third person, where everything's a name. You can watch them go. You know, what is this? Oh, that's, you know, what is that? Well, this is, what is this? And so, oh, that's a can of tobacco. But when you break through the grammar and the prison of third person, it's my teacher in a can. You see, it's my teacher. It's not a can of tobacco. Now it's magical. It's magical, you see. So, third person, there's no magic, there's no wonder, there's no awe, there's no beauty, there's no life. First person, I am everything. The observer and the observed are one. Subject and object are one in first person, but we can't stay there because the frame of reality that we're locked into is third person. So third person viewpoint has a karma, a social karma, like a truck. You can't stop the truck on a dime. So we can't get out of third person immediately and stay out. Those that do prematurely end up in a ward. They're in first person, but the third person world says you're crazy. You need a little isolation, you know. So the spiritual experience, if you want to call it that, awakening, are moments of first person when we break out of the prison of grammar. But we can't hold it. We can't stay there because of the karma of the third person, which is our reality, which is the very frame of reality that we just assume is out there in it. In it, you see, everything's in it, and you can name it, define it, study it, become an expert on its, but it's all third person. The I is missing. It's called the ghost in the machine. When the world is looked at as a machine, the mechanic is absent. It's a ghost. So we run around, who am I, who am I? But we try to find out who I am in the third person, which sees myself as an it. Everything's an it, you see. So we're all prisoners of grammar. And I love this. I think I invented it myself. I don't know, where I read it somewhere, but I suddenly, because I was familiar with English, it makes a great metaphor, makes a great way of understanding the dilemma we're in, trying to find who I am with the wrong viewpoint. And Buddha said in his last teaching was everything is a viewpoint, even Buddhism. It's all a viewpoint. There's no better viewpoint. There's no one viewpoint with all these hierarchy of viewpoints. Everything is a viewpoint, which is third person grammar. The viewpoint of third person grammar, or the view, or the reality of third person grammar, is that I am a viewpoint of the world as things, but I am missing. And if I turn around and try to find myself, I try to see myself as a thing. So if I look for myself, so the question, who am I look for something. I look for something. But something's not there. It's empty. So in the third person viewpoint, there's no room for emptiness unless we make it a thing. Say, oh, emptiness. Oh, yeah, I know that. It's something. I looked it up. I've defined it. I looked it up in Google. I know what emptiness is. You see, the trap, the prison, the trap of words, the trap of the viewpoint. Thanks for dropping in.